Honey, can we please put the knife down? I'm just a guy who wants to coast through life, and my mom set me up on a blind date. The woman was a goddess, but the first thing she did was test the bread with a scanner, use a water quality strip on my glass, and then assess my threat level as low. I thought that was the craziest it could get. Then she tried to physically neutralize my boss and use hacker tactics to ruin my college crush. And I realized things were a lot more complicated than they seemed. This girlfriend of mine, she's a professional. And her family? They're even more professional. Help me, they now want me to file 300 years of back taxes. My mom, a retiree whose life philosophy is if you swing the shovel hard enough, you can undermine any wall, had finally pulled out her trump card after 9 failed blind dates. Ethan, this one is completely different. I've seen the pictures, a total knockout. I had to pull strings with your Aunt Carol's cousin's co-worker to even get this meeting. It's a golden opportunity. You have to lock it down. I pinched the bridge of my nose, a dull throb starting in my temples. The last 9 candidates included a woman who wanted me to recite SAT prep questions on the spot, one who asked if I was okay with her 30-plus cats, and another who suggested I move to her tiny town in Alabama to inherit the family catfish farm. Me? I'm Ethan Cole. All I want is to clock out on time, play video games on the weekend, and marry a normal woman who understands basic human conversation. Is that too much to ask? Seeing the final ultimatum in my mom's text, I surrendered. The date was at a downtown steakhouse where the tasting menu has 4 digits. I got there half an hour early, trying to show at least a shred of sincerity. Right on time, a figure appeared at the restaurant's entrance. I'll admit it, for a split second, I heard my own heart skip a beat. The photos hadn't done her justice. They'd actually undersold her. She wore a simple white dress, her black hair falling to her waist. Her skin was like porcelain, her features so perfect they looked like they were rendered by an AI, especially her eyes, as clear as a spring, yet with a hint of detached aloofness that kept everyone at a distance. This was Ava Sterling. She walked straight to my table and sat, her movements clean and efficient, without a single wasted motion. "Hi, I'm Ethan," I said, my palms sweating. I forced what I hoped was my most charming smile. "Ava," she replied. Her voice was like her presence, cool and crisp. "I've reviewed the file. Height, weight, annual income are all consistent with the provided data." The smile on my face froze. A file? This felt more like a security clearance interview. An awkward silence stretched across the table. I quickly waved down a waiter and pushed the menu toward her. "So, see what you like. Don't be shy, order anything. Just polite chatter. Normal, polite chatter, right?" Ava nodded. "Okay." Then, to my utter astonishment, she pulled a small, silver, wand-like scanner out of her purse. She picked up a piece of the complimentary bread and swept the device over it. Beep. A small green light blinked on the wand. She gave a satisfied nod, then took out a small spray bottle, misted my water glass, and dipped a test strip into it. The strip didn't change color. Throughout the entire process, her expression was dead serious, her movements professional, as if she were executing a high-stakes mission. Heads were already turning from nearby tables, their gazes a mix of curiosity, confusion, and the kind of pity you reserve for a public spectacle. My face flushed, the heat rising from my neck to the top of my head. So this is what social suicide feels like. The suffocating urge to dig a hole, jump in, and seal it with concrete. Ms. Sterling, what are you?" I could feel my voice trembling. "Safety assessment," she stated plainly. Then, those clear eyes scanned me from head to toe. "Is your hair real?" "Raise your hands." Like a puppet on a string, I raised my hands. She leaned in closer, inspecting the dirt under my fingernails, and even sniffed the cuff of my shirt. Breathing is slightly accelerated, heart rate estimated at over 120 BPM, palms are clammy, gaze is evasive. She sat back, delivering her summary calmly. "According to my family's training manual, Chapter 3, Section 7, these are classic indicators of poor psychological fortitude and a weak stress tolerance." My mouth hung open. I couldn't form a single word. It wasn't poor psychological fortitude. It was my entire worldview crumbling around me. Just when I thought this disastrous dinner was about to end with me having a stroke, Ava put away all her tools and offered me the first smile I'd seen since she arrived. It was like watching ice melt in the spring, devastatingly beautiful. Mr. Cole, she said softly, preliminary assessment concludes your threat level to me is low. We can proceed with a trial dating period. I don't know how I agreed to a trial dating period. Maybe it was my mom's relentless follow-up calls, or maybe the lethal impact of Ava's threat level. Low smile. Either way, we were now technically boyfriend and girlfriend. The next few days were calm. She just texted me 3 times a day, morning, noon, and night, asking, "Are you still alive?" Which made me wonder if she had some kind of wellness KPI to meet. Then, on Wednesday afternoon, my corporate nightmare came alive. A project went sideways, and my direct supervisor, Mr. Henderson, threw me under the bus in front of the entire team, pinning all the blame squarely on me. And Kevin, the colleague who was actually responsible, not only denied it, but had the gall to claim I'd led the team in the wrong direction. I was seething. I ducked into the stairwell and called Ava, mostly just needing to vent to someone. I'm going to lose my mind. That fat idiot Henderson does nothing but sell us a bunch of empty promises, and the second something goes wrong, I'm the fall guy. And Kevin is such a two-faced corporate snake, always the first to take credit for other people's work. I unloaded all my pent-up frustration into the phone. Ava was unusually quiet on the other end. After I finished my rant, she asked in her uniquely calm voice, "This Henderson, what's his full name? And Kevin, which department?" I was so worked up I told her without a second thought. "Understood," she said. "I'll handle it." I assumed handling it meant she'd offer a few comforting words or join me in cursing them out. I was so naive. The next day, I arrived at the office with 2 dark circles under my eyes, ready for another day of soul-crushing work. Just as I sat down at my desk, I got a text from Ava. In position, Target A, Henderson, is in his private office. Target B, Kevin, is in the break room. Recommend neutralizing target first. Lower visibility, reduced chance of detection. My brain blue-screened for a solid 3 seconds. A chill shot my spine. I snapped my head up, my eyes frantically scanning the office. Finally, behind the fire escape door, I saw half of a familiar, impossibly beautiful face. Ava was dressed in black athletic wear, her hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, her eyes as calm and focused as a professional hitman's. She even gave me an okay sign. I was losing my mind. I was officially losing my damn mind. I shot out of my chair and sprinted toward the fire escape, yanking her inside. What are you doing here?" I whispered, my voice cracking with panic. "Helping you deal with office politics," she said, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. She showed me the notes on her phone, which were brazenly titled Workplace Annoyance Neutralization Protocol. Plan A, physical sedation, staged to look like an afternoon nap. Plan B, engineer an electrical short to create a minor diversion, then strike. Plan C. The world went dark. I nearly passed out right there. "Ava, this is illegal. This is a go to prison for a very long time, kind of illegal." I grabbed her shoulders, shaking her, trying to physically dislodge the terrifying thoughts from her brain. The manual states that threats must be eliminated decisively, with no loose ends, she said with a frown, genuinely puzzled by my overreaction. "Don't worry, I'm a professional. I won't leave a trace." "A professional what?" Just then, the fire escape door creaked open. My boss, Mr. Henderson, stood there, his beer belly preceding him, a suspicious look on his face. "Ethan, what are you doing in here with a young lady during work hours?" The scene froze. I was still clutching Ava's shoulders. She was still wearing her ready-to-strike expression. How could I possibly explain this? "My girlfriend was planning to knock you out and make it look like you fell asleep at your desk." Henderson's suspicious gaze darted between us. Finally, a greasy, knowing smile spread across his face. "Well, Ethan, it's good for young people to be ambitious, but you need to pick your time and place. This is a professional environment, after all." He patted my shoulder, turned, and walked away. I had a feeling my career had just met its end, long before his life was ever in danger. My career didn't end, but my apartment did. Henderson's misunderstanding made me the office laughingstock. Everyone thought I'd been trying to make a move on the new intern in the stairwell. And Ava, the real culprit, summarized the incident as, Your supervisor is not only a threat, but also a cognitively impaired individual. Before I could argue, I got a call from my landlord. Ethan, the wiring in the apartment above you went bad, started a fire. The sprinklers went off, and your place is completely flooded. Furniture, electronics, everything's ruined. After hanging up, I stood on the sidewalk outside my office building, watching the rush hour traffic, and for the first time in my life, I felt truly homeless. Ava pulled up in her nondescript sedan. My assessment indicates you are currently in a state of resource deprivation, she said, rolling down the window, her face expressionless. My residence has 2 bedrooms and is classified as a maximum security location. You can move in temporarily. What could I say? For a guy whose worldly possessions were now waterlogged junk, a place to stay was a godsend. But the moment I stepped over her threshold, dragging my suitcase, I knew I had been naive once again. Her apartment was huge, decorated in a minimalist industrial style, but the air was thick with a palpable sense of danger. "Welcome to the safe house," Ava said, handing me a pair of slippers. "Before you settle in, you'll need to familiarize yourself with the security protocols." She pointed to a painting on the living room wall. Behind that is an emergency exit leading to the adjacent building. She gestured to the couch. "Under the cushions, you'll find compressed biscuits and a first aid kit." Then she led me to my bedroom, lifted the mattress, and revealed neatly arranged gas masks, a tactical shovel, and a coil of climbing rope. "This is under your bed," she explained calmly. "Given your poor psychological fortitude, I've only installed the basic infrared alarm in the bathroom. When triggered, it emits a siren but will not activate the automated defense system. Be mindful of your movements when showering to avoid false alarms." I stood there, feeling less like a new roommate and more like a recruit at a spy training camp. My daily life instantly switched from coasting to extreme survival mode. The first night, I got up to use the bathroom, forgot her instructions, and opened my door a little too quickly. The hallway erupted with a piercing alarm. In less than 3 seconds, Ava burst out of her room in her pajamas, wielding a frying pan, her eyes sharp as a hawk's. When she saw it was me, she lowered the pan. Response time, 2.8 seconds. Acceptable. But next time, remember to knock 3 times on your own door before opening. That's the signal to disarm the alarm. The next day, I wanted to use the kitchen. The moment I opened the fridge, a tiny bell attached to the door fell off. Ava materialized again, inspecting it with a frown. "That's the poison gas detector I set up. You tripped it. The kitchen now needs to be ventilated for 30 minutes before entry." All I wanted was a Coke. The most terrifying incident happened on the 3rd night. I was woken by a strange thwip sound. I groggily opened my eyes, and in the moonlight streaming through the window, I saw a dark figure standing in front of my closet. It was Ava. She was holding a handful of gleaming steak knives. One by one, she was throwing them at my closet door. At some point, she had taped a human-shaped target to it. Every knife hit the bullseye. The blood in my veins turned to ice. I didn't dare breathe, curling into a ball under the covers, pretending to be fast asleep. She practiced for about 10 minutes, then, satisfied, collected her knives and silently left my room. I opened my eyes and stared at the deep gouges in my closet door with only one thought in my head. This wasn't living with a roommate. This was living with a predator. I felt like I was just one forgotten door knock away from being optimized. To convince my best friends that I actually had a girlfriend and hadn't just had a psychotic break after being fired, I decided to arrange a get-together to formally introduce Ava to them. I chose a loud, rowdy sports bar, thinking the chaotic atmosphere might neutralize some of Ava's latent lethal energy. Before we left, I gave her 1,000 warnings. "Ava, when you meet my friends, just smile and talk as little as possible, okay?" "Why?" she asked, confused. "Information exchange is the foundation of building trust." No. For normal people, trust is built on bragging about fantasy football and telling stupid jokes. I explained desperately. Just think of it as an undercover mission. Your objective is to portray a normal, cheerful girl. She nodded thoughtfully. Understood. Infiltration and disguise. My stomach dropped. That somehow sounded worse. When we got to the bar, my 3 best friends, Mike, Leo, and Chris, were already there. When they saw Ava, their jaws practically hit the floor. "Holy crap, Ethan, you sly dog. Where'd you find a girl like this? Mike blurted out. Ava immediately put on the standard smile I'd taught her and said nothing. Hey there, I'm Leo, he said, sidling up with a smirk. Ethan here is a pretty boring guy. No sense of adventure. Don't let him fool you. Back in college, he used to... I kicked him under the table, cutting off his death wish. A few rounds of beers in, the guys started their usual antics, insisting they had to test my new girlfriend. Chris cleared his throat and asked with mock seriousness, So, Ava, we grew up with Ethan. We know all his flaws. Tell us, what do you even see in him? It was a softball question. All she had to do was say something like he's sweet or he's dependable, and we'd be in the clear. I looked at her nervously, trying to signal her with my eyes. Ava's smile didn't waver. Based on my comprehensive evaluation, Ethan possesses several key advantages. First, his social circle is limited, with no potential romantic entanglements, resulting in a clean background that facilitates due diligence. Second, his physical capabilities are average, indicating a low propensity for violence and ensuring high controllability. Third, his passive personality makes him easily guidable, lowering the difficulty of establishing a dominant relational dynamic. The blare of the sports bar's TVs couldn't drown out the sudden silence at our table. The expressions on my friends' faces shifted from amused to stunned to utterly blank. Leo forgot to put the chicken wing he was holding into his mouth. I wanted to crawl under the table and die. Mike, ever the optimist, tried to salvage the situation with a nervous laugh. What a kidder. Anyway, Ava, if Ethan ever gives you any trouble, you just let us know. We'll rough him up for you. Ava's expression changed instantly. It was the look she got when she was assessing a threat, calm and piercing. She looked at Mike. You are married to your high school sweetheart, currently trying for a baby. Last month, you spent $300 from your secret savings to tip an online streamer you follow, which is why your credit card bill is giving you anxiety. Do you require me to rough him up for you? The color drained from Mike's face. She then turned to Leo. You are single, maintaining ambiguous relationships with 5 different women across 3 separate dating apps, using 3 different aliases. Do you require me to rough him up for you? Leo's face turned a shade of green. Finally, she looked at Chris. Last week, you told your girlfriend you were working late, but you actually attended your ex-girlfriend's wedding and gave them a $100 gift. Do you require me to... Stop, Chris yelped, nearly sliding off his chair. A dead silence fell over the table. My 3 friends, who had been so cocky moments before, now sat with their heads bowed, sweating, not daring to breathe. Ava took a sip of her water, her pleasant smile returning. Just kidding, she said. Looking at my friends' terrified faces, I knew our friendship would never be the same. As we were leaving, Leo pulled me aside, looking at me with the reverence one saves for a war hero. Ethan, be straight with me, he whispered, his voice trembling. Is your girlfriend in the CIA? After the Meet the Friends disaster, my buddies started looking at me with a mixture of pity and awe. They nicknamed me the Walking Intelligence Agency's husband. I thought life would settle into a weird, kind of normal, but then Chloe showed up. Chloe was a classmate from college, the one I'd had a massive, unrequited crush on. She moved overseas after graduation, but had recently returned and reconnected with everyone at a reunion. She was even more beautiful now, and a lot more forward. She started texting me out of the blue, asking me for coffee, her messages laced with a subtle, flirty ambiguity. As a normal guy with extremely poor psychological fortitude, I'll admit my ego was getting a little inflated. Ava noticed the change almost immediately. She didn't cry or yell or even question me. One evening, while I was playing a video game, she simply walked up behind me and asked, "Is this Chloe the next threat you need me to eliminate?" My hand slipped on the controller, and my character was instantly killed by a low-level enemy. No, she's not a threat, just an old friend," I stammered, terrified she was about to suggest physical neutralization. An old friend? Ava tilted her head, her clear eyes filled with confusion. The manual defines any potential element that could destabilize a primary relationship as a Class 1 threat. This is the modern world. We have a thing called dating. We don't just eliminate threats. I felt like my values were being put through a shredder. Understood, she nodded. You're saying I cannot employ direct methods, but must instead use the methods of the modern world. I breathed a sigh of relief, thinking she'd finally gotten it. But once again, I had underestimated her professional capabilities. The next week was quiet. Chloe stopped texting me. I figured it was just a passing fancy. Then I got a frantic call from Leo. Ethan, something big just happened. Your old flame, Chloe, she's in deep trouble. What kind of trouble? I asked, confused. Someone reported her to the IRS for tax evasion, and her company is being audited. Then, someone else dug up all her old dirt from college, failed classes, plagiarism, and sent it to her new boss. But the craziest part is, an anonymous source sent her fiancé screenshots of her flirty texts with a bunch of other guys. She lost her job, and the wedding's off. I listened completely stunned. After I hung up, a deep sense of dread washed over me. When I got home, Ava was sitting on the couch, looking at her tablet. She saw me and handed it over. The screen displayed a professionally designed PowerPoint presentation titled Action Report on the elimination of the Chloe potential threat. The report meticulously detailed Chloe's personal information, social network, and psychological weaknesses, followed by a step-by-step breakdown of Ava's actions. From background checks and evidence gathering to the use of anonymous channels for precision strikes, every move was a masterclass in asymmetrical warfare. Logical, ruthless, and perfectly executed. I swiped through the slides, my hands growing cold. This wasn't jealousy. This was a textbook intelligence, psychological, and information warfare campaign. On the final slide was a massive red digital stamp with 2 words. Threat neutralized. Ava looked up at me, her pure eyes searching my face, her tone holding a hint of someone seeking praise. I studied the rules of your modern society. No physical violence was used this time. Everything was done by the book, correct? I stared at her, my mouth open, but no words came out. What kind of monster had I fallen for? After the crush neutralization incident, I developed a severe case of PTSD regarding my mom's calls about my love life. I was terrified she'd demand to meet my goddess girlfriend, only to be assessed by Ava as a potential destabilizing factor. Of course, my worst fears came true. On Saturday morning, while I was still deep in a dream, my doorbell began ringing insistently. I stumbled to the door, hair sticking up in every direction, and opened it to find my mom, Susan, standing there with 2 large bags of groceries and a beaming smile. Surprise, sweetie. Mom's here to do a spot check and see how you two are getting along. My brain buzzed. It was over. Just then, Ava emerged from her bedroom in workout clothes, fresh from her morning exercise. Our eyes met. The air froze. Mama, this is my girlfriend, Ava. I managed, my voice strained. Hello, ma'am, Ava said with a nod, her expression as placid as ever. My mom's face lit up. She grabbed Ava's hands. Oh, my goodness, you're even prettier than the pictures. Come in, come in. I pulled my mom into the kitchen and hissed in the lowest voice I could manage. Mom, why didn't you call first? I wanted to surprise you. You mean terrify me? I took a deep breath, rushed out of the kitchen, and dragged Ava onto the balcony to conduct the most difficult emergency training of my life. Listen, Ava, urgent mission. From this moment on, you are to portray a perfect, normal, sweet, and caring girlfriend. Whatever my mom asks, just say nice things, smile a lot, and do not, under any circumstances, use the words assessment, threat, or neutralize. Objective, obtain parental approval. Behavioral model, impersonate perfect daughter-in-law. Understood. She even gave a summary. The next few hours were pure torture. My mom asked, so, Ava dear, what are your hobbies? Ava flashed a perfect 8-toothed smile and replied in a tone more robotic than a GPS voice. Ma'am, my hobbies include reading, culinary arts, and flower arrangement. These activities are conducive to cultivating emotional tranquility. My mom tried again. And what do you think of our Ethan? Ava's smile remained fixed. Ethan is an exemplary male partner. His temperament is mild and his emotional state is stable, making him an ideal companion. Throughout the conversation, her posture was ramrod straight, her hands folded neatly in her lap, her answers flawless, and the curve of her smile never once changed. She wasn't playing the part of a perfect daughter-in-law. She was playing a robot manufactured with perfect daughter-in-law as its factory setting. The smile on my mom's face slowly faded, replaced by a deep, worried confusion. During lunch, my mom put a piece of brisket on my plate. Ava immediately took out her phone, opened an app, and scanned the meat. According to the calorie calculator, this portion of brisket contains approximately 150 calories and has an excessive fat content. Consumption is not advised. The air at the table grew cold enough to freeze. Finally, my mom made an excuse to pull me into the bedroom. She shut the door, her face grim. "Ethan, you need to be honest with me." "About what? Are you in debt? Did you get mixed up with some kind of weird organization? Is this girl, one of them, sent to monitor you?" I almost fell to my knees. "Mom, what are you talking about?" "Then what's wrong with her? She talks like she's reading a script, and her smile doesn't even reach her eyes." My mom lowered her voice, her eyes wide with terror. "Tell me the truth. Have you joined some kind of cult like one of those mail-order bride schemes? Should I call the police right now?" Watching my mother's trembling hand reach for her phone, I felt my world had become one giant, inexplicable misunderstanding. To ease the tension with my mom and prove I hadn't joined a cult, I decided to take Ava to a street fair to experience some normal couple fun. The fair was a chaotic mix of shouting vendors, laughing families, and the smell of grilled corn dogs and funnel cake. I held a corn dog in one hand and Ava's hand in the other, trying my best to cultivate a romantic atmosphere. Ava seemed completely uninterested, her focus entirely on maintaining a high level of alertness, scanning every person in the crowd like a bodyguard on duty. "Relax, we're safe here. Nobody's going to kidnap you," I said with a sigh. "The manual states that the most chaotic environments are the most prone to danger," she replied grimly. Before I could argue, trouble found us. 3 guys with brightly colored hair and sloppy clothes blocked our path. The one with yellow hair let out a low whistle, his eyes raking over Ava. "Well, hello there, gorgeous. What are you doing with this loser? Why don't you come have a drink with some real men?" It was a textbook harassment scenario. My stomach tightened. I instinctively pulled Ava behind me, ready to pull out my wallet and de-escalate. That's how a guy like me handles things. "Hey guys, my girlfriend's a little shy. Please don't scare her. Here, have a drink on me." But before I could even reach for my wallet, Ava stepped out from behind me. Her face was a blank mask. She looked at the 3 guys as if they were inanimate objects. "Your actions have triggered a Class 1 personal threat alert," she said in her cool, clear voice. The yellow-haired guy blinked, then burst out laughing. "An alert? What is this, a movie?" The words were barely out of his mouth before Ava moved. She was a blur of motion. All I saw was a quick sidestep, a forward advance, and a clean, decisive arm lock. The hand yellow hair had been reaching out with was twisted sharply behind his back. A sickening crack echoed through the sudden silence, followed by his agonized scream. Before his 2 friends could even react, Ava delivered a precise knife-hand strike to the neck of one, who went limp instantly. She took down the last one with a swift kick to the knee, forcing him to the ground. The entire engagement lasted less than 5 seconds. The crowd of fairgoers stared, stunned. The cheerful noise of the fair seemed to have been muted. I was stunned too, still holding my half-eaten corn dog. Was this the same normal girlfriend I was supposed to be protecting? But the real shock was yet to come. Ava planted her foot on Yellowhair's back, leaned down, and spoke in a tone I had never heard before, cold, professional, and utterly terrifying. "Where's your turf? Who's your shot caller? Who's your supplier? If you don't talk, I have 17 methods to make you, each one guaranteed to let you feel every last one of your nerve endings." The guy, sweating and delirious with pain, was completely broken by this barrage of interrogation jargon. He stammered out everything about his little gang. I stood there feeling like an innocent bystander who had wandered onto the set of spy thriller. For the first time, I understood with chilling clarity that Ava's quirks weren't paranoia or role-playing. They were genuine, deeply ingrained professional skills. After dealing with the thugs, she tied them up, left them in an alley, and made an anonymous 911 call. Ava walked back to me as if nothing had happened and gently wiped an imaginary smudge of mustard from the corner of my mouth. She looked at my dumbfounded face, a hint of confusion in her clear eyes. "Do you require me to dismantle their root organization as well?" she asked, her tone as casual as if she were asking, "Do you want fries with that?" After the street fair incident, I fell into a long, contemplative silence. I stopped trying to fix Ava and started asking myself a more fundamental question. Who was she really? What kind of family produced someone with her so-called training? The answer came sooner and stranger than I could have imagined. I came home from work one day to find Ava at the table, studying a letter. The envelope was made of old-fashioned parchment, sealed with wax, and stamped with a complex crest I didn't recognize. "What's that?" I asked. "A letter from home," she said without looking up. She opened it to reveal a piece of rice paper covered in dense, handwritten characters that looked like something out of an ancient manuscript. I couldn't read a single word, but Ava read it with keen interest, nodding occasionally. "They know about you," she said, finally looking up at me. "They? Who?" My stomach clenched. "My family." I swallowed hard. The air in the room felt thin. The thought of a family that could raise a daughter to be this professional was terrifying. "What does it say?" I asked cautiously. Ava turned the letter toward me, pointed to a section of the strange script, and began to translate. Her voice as flat as a weather report. "Decree from the Patriarch. Our scouts report that Ava has engaged in a close association with a civilian mundane named Ethan Cole in violation of the Silent Veil Protocol. However, given her solitary deployment, this indiscretion is understandable. The aforementioned civilian is hereby summoned to the ancestral estate on the 15th of next month to undergo the ordeal of judgment." She paused, then continued. "The purpose of the ordeal is to ascertain the subject's character, cunning, and loyalty, to determine if he is a viable asset or a liability requiring neutralization." A cold sweat broke out across my forehead. Patriarch? Decree? Scouts? Ordeal? Neutralize a liability. What century was this? Who still used language so theatrical and horrifying? "So, your family wants to meet me." I felt my voice shake. "Yes," Ava confirmed. "It's a test to determine whether you get to survive." Survive? I thought I'd misheard. Ava looked at me, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of what might have been sympathy. "The family has always been highly efficient in its handling of external factors that might compromise its security," she explained. "Pass the ordeal, and you will be accepted. Fail." She paused, searching for the right word. I held my breath, waiting for the word that would seal my fate. "What happens if I fail?" I pressed. Ava met my gaze with her incredibly serious eyes and said, enunciating each word, "The family has a very mature and humane process for personnel optimization." Coming from her, the word optimization sounded 100 times more terrifying than neutralization. In the end, I gave in, not because I was brave, but because Ava informed me that refusing the invitation would get me classified as a coward fleeing judgment. My threat level would be elevated to maximum, and the family would initiate the all-encompassing net protocol to optimize me. I did not want to experience that protocol. So, on a gray, rainy weekend, I got into Ava's car and set off on the road to my unknown fate. We drove for 5 hours, leaving the city and suburbs far behind, eventually turning onto a dirt road through the mountains that didn't exist on any map. The road was flanked by a dense, ancient forest shrouded in a mist so thick it felt like the opening scene of a horror movie. Finally, the car stopped before a massive, walled compound. Gray brick, dark tiles, and a towering red gate hung with 2 eerie white lanterns swaying in the mist. It looked less like an ancestral home and more like a fortress cut off from the rest of the world. Ava led me inside. The interior was a labyrinth of courtyards and pavilions, beautiful but suffused with a grim, martial atmosphere. The people inside wore practical, old-fashioned tunics and moved with a silent, deadly grace. Their eyes were sharp, and as they nodded to Ava, their gazes lingered on me, full of appraisal and evaluation. I felt like a golden retriever that had wandered into a wolf pack. My ordeal began the moment I stepped through the gate. First, trap evasion. A wizened old man pointed to a path covered in fallen leaves and told me to walk across. As I was about to take a step, Ava coughed softly behind me. I froze, then, remembering something from a movie, I picked up a rock and tossed it onto the path. Swish, swish, swish. Dozens of black-tipped bamboo spikes shot out from both sides of the path, startling me so badly I fell flat on my butt. The old man's face was impassive. Alertness adequate. Second, lie detection. I was taken to a large ancestral hall where a middle-aged man with eyes like a hawk sat on an imposing chair. He was the patriarch. He said nothing, just stared at me. A younger man beside him began asking questions on a wide range of topics. What's your monthly salary? 12,000. False. Your bank statements show your net income after taxes and deductions is $9,782.50. I was floored. They had my bank records? Are your feelings for our Ava genuine? Yes. This time, my answer was firm and immediate. The young man glanced at the patriarch, who gave a slight, almost imperceptible nod. Third, wilderness survival. They dropped me in the forest behind the compound with nothing but a knife and told me to find 3 types of edible plants and 2 sources of potable water before nightfall. I looked at the bewildering array of flora around me, my mind a complete blank. The only thing I recognized was a red and white mushroom that looked exactly like the ones from Super Mario. Just as I was about to give up, a rabbit ran full speed into a tree at my feet and dropped dead. A few minutes later, a fish literally jumped out of a stream and landed on the bank. When I returned to the compound with the rabbit and the fish, everyone stared at me like I was some kind of nature wizard. I had no idea Ava was hidden in the trees, expertly hunting for me with a high-powered slingshot. The final test was administered by the patriarch himself. He led me to his study and pointed to a portrait of an ancient general on the wall. "This is the founder of our family," he said, his voice deep and resonant. "We are descended from a private intelligence service that operated during the Revolutionary War, answering only to Washington himself. Though we now live in seclusion, we have never forgotten our purpose. I ask you, if a powerful enemy were to threaten this family, how should we respond?" I looked at him, my mind racing. Say, fight to the death. Too reckless. Use strategy. Too cliché. I was a modern office worker. My expertise was in slacking off and avoiding responsibility, not warfare. I took a deep breath and said in the most sincere tone I could muster, "I think we should call the cops." The study fell into a dead, profound silence. The patriarch's piercing gaze locked onto me, and I felt my life was about to end. He stared at me for a full minute, and then he let out a loud, booming laugh. "Call the cops? Ha ha! Excellent. Call the cops." I was dumbfounded. He clapped me on the shoulder, his eyes filled with genuine admiration. "In 300 years, you're the first person to think of using the authorities to solve our problems. Such a novel approach, unbound by tradition, leveraging external forces. You are the catalyst for change this family needs." Me, Ethan Cole, had just passed a deadly trial. By suggesting they call 911, Ethan Cole, a perfectly average guy who just wanted to coast, was now considered a visionary genius by the Sterling family. All because I suggested calling the police. This world was completely insane. My status instantly rocketed from liability pending optimization to prospective son-in-law and special consultant on modern affairs. After the ordeal, the patriarch held a celebratory dinner. At the table, the same relatives who had previously looked at me like I was already dead were now beaming at me with warmth. A burly man poured me a drink. "Brother Ethan, we'll be counting on you to help us get the compound security system connected to the internet." An older woman piled food onto my plate. "Ethan, dear, I hear you know how to use that PowerPoint thing. Could you handle the family's annual report this year?" I smiled stiffly and agreed to everything, feeling less like a guest of honor and more like I was signing an indenture contract. Ava sat beside me, her expression as neutral as ever, but I thought I saw a new softness in her eyes. She leaned in and whispered, "Congratulations. You survived." I gave a weak smile. Yes, I survived, but the cost was the complete annihilation of my worldview and the redirection of my life's trajectory onto a path I couldn't have begun to predict. After dinner, the patriarch summoned me to his study alone. He handed me a cup of tea. "Ethan, Ava is the most exceptional child this family has produced in 300 years. But she has only ever learned our code, not the ways of the human heart, nor the world beyond these mountains. I am entrusting her to you. I hope you can be the bridge between her and that world." Looking at him, I finally understood. This seemingly ruthless family loved their child in their own way. They didn't want to be isolated forever. They just didn't know how to connect. In that moment, my fear melted away, replaced by an unexpected pang of empathy and a sense of responsibility. I nodded. Sir, I'll do my best. The patriarch smiled, satisfied. He retrieved a heavy wooden chest from behind his desk and placed it in front of me. Excellent. As your first task, as the family's bridge, and as the final test of your abilities. He opened the chest. It was filled to the brim with ancient bamboo slips and yellowed scrolls. These are the family's financial record for the past 300 years, detailing the acquisition of every single asset. The patriarch patted my shoulder, his eyes gleaming with trust and expectation. I hear the outside world now requires payment of something called taxes. We'll leave this matter in your capable hands. We have faith in your modern, professional expertise. I stared at the mountain of ancient ledgers, filled with records of neutralizations, acquisitions, and optimizations, and felt the blood drain from my face. Filing 300 years of back taxes for a family of assassins? I could feel my soul slowly detaching from my body. This ridiculous new life of mine hadn't even officially started, and it was already this intense and